All right, good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock, and I would like to call the Monday, June 26th meeting of Kimberley City Council to order here on the homelands of the Ktunaxa peoples. We have a couple of late items on the agenda tonight, both correspondence. Could I have a mover to receive? Councillor Donneback, thank you, and Councillor McBain seconds. Thank you. Everybody in favor? Awesome, thanks. Mover to adopt the agenda of June 22nd, regular council. Thank you, Councillor Cairns and Councillor Royer seconds. Any opposed? Motion is carried. And adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on May the 29th. Mover, please. Thank you, Councillor McBain and Councillor Roberts seconds. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, we have two public hearings tonight, and we'll start off with the first, which is for bylaw 2738, which is light industrial zone 2 amendments. Modernization, I guess, is the term we're using, Troy, right? Okay, in advance, I'll just kind of set up the rules of the public hearing. Bear with me here for about 3 minutes. We will be hearing submissions by telephone or in person this evening. If anyone listening via the YouTube stream would like to share their comments on these bylaws, please call in now. And that number to call is 1-800-741-7180. And when prompted, enter meeting number or access code 2772-853-1840. When asked for a password, simply enter the pound or the hash key. And once you are connected, you'll be able to hear the meeting, but will be muted on hold until it's your turn to speak. If you're listening to the live stream while on the phone, please make sure you mute or turn the volume down on the live stream to avoid causing any audio feedback. You may let us know that you would like to speak by entering *3 on your phone to raise your hand, and you will know when it's your turn to speak when you hear that your microphone has been unmuted. We ask everyone for patience during the hearing, as we will be moving slowly to allow ample time for switching between speakers. And there is a minor delay between the live stream and the telephone audio, so please be understanding. Any person who believes their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given an opportunity to be heard, and no one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. Members of council may ask questions of you during your presentation for clarification purposes. However, the main function of council members at this hearing is to listen to the comments presented and not debate the merits of the proposed bylaw or any comments presented. You will be given 5 minutes for your presentation. I will call for presentations 3 times before closing the hearing. Once the hearing is closed, members of council cannot take any further input regarding the proposed amending bylaw. And after this public hearing has conducted, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. Thanks for your cooperation and your patience. So on to public hearing for bylaw 2734. This electronic public hearing is being convened pursuant to section 646 of the Local Government Act in order to consider the proposed zoning amendment bylaw 2738, amendment number 164 to zoning bylaw 1850. We will begin with a brief overview of the bylaw and then call for any submissions from those on the phone or in the gallery. Roy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Proposed bylaw 2738 generally focuses on the light industrial zone M2 and modernizes language and permitted principal and accessory use categories to reflect industrial and manufacturing land use objectives and trends. The proposed changes also limit storage uses in the M2 zone and establish new regulations for height, setbacks, parcel area, and landscaping. And just for added clarity, there's no map amendment involved in this bylaw, simply text amendments to the zoning bylaw.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Troy. So before we begin receiving verbal submissions, we will acknowledge receipt of any written submissions prior to the start of the hearing. Maurice, we had the 2 late submissions this evening.
And there's also a submission from Carl Lauren that was attached to the report that's submitted for third reading.
Okay, there were a couple there, I think, two at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had four written submissions prior to the start of the hearing today. Copies of all written submissions have been provided to council via the agenda this evening. Okay, so I will call for submissions a first time. Those on the line, the moderator will unmute you to let you know when it's your turn. And would everyone please begin by clearly stating your name and address and then present your comments. First call. Anybody in the gallery? Do we have someone on the phone for this particular bylaw? Jean Terpsma, I believe I heard.
Hi.
Go ahead, Jean.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, it's Jean Terpsma, and I did submit written comments concerning, particularly concerning Knighton Road property of one of my clients. Mr. Seifert owns that property. And pretty much said everything in the letter that I wanted to say. However, I'm just going to reiterate that I do think that more work needs to be done on this amending bylaw. I just don't understand taking storage units or self-storage. It's good to define self-storage, but to remove it from the zoning bylaw, I think is a mistake. And I don't understand why it would be removed from the zoning bylaw completely. It would be good to understand the staff reasoning behind that. That's our main concern. The other one, we think it's good that the proposal is adding in an option for some residents to be accessory to a light industrial use, particularly for someone living on site that can help to secure it and keep it a safe place, and to try and prevent any kind of vandalism, etc., that may occur on uninhabited property. So those are the two key things. We're happy about the option of residents on the site, but we're unhappy and confused with removing storage, self-storage, household good type storage option in the light industrial zoning in the bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Anybody else on the line to speak to this one? Yeah, Megan, just to clarify, you're 72 Kimberly Ave, right?
Yes, that's correct. I'm just pretty much here to listen in, and if anyone has any questions, because I'm the property owner.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Megan. Okay, anybody in the gallery?
I'm Carl Lauren. We have a big portion of the land down, as you'd call it, the Marysville Industrial. I think that hopefully everyone read my letter that I wrote in detail. I want to start out with, like, first of all, I think the amending zoning is a good thing. I think adding usages to increase the potential for new business is good. I think I made it really clear that taking out zonings, especially the self-storage, I don't want to get hung up on that, is really bad. I think I made that really clear. One of the main topics in the agenda that you guys had was the aesthetics of self-storage, like aesthetics of self-storage, aesthetics of a house, aesthetics of a building, they all are synonymous. Like, you can build a crappy looking building, you can build a crappy looking fence, you can build a crappy looking self-storage. Tyee in particular, I'd like to think that we've earned the right to be able to say that whatever we build is going to look good. So I don't want to get hung up on what we're doing, but as far as self-storage goes, I think there's a way to, from Tyee's perspective, do the development that we want to do and also make it look good. And I think we've earned that right. The other thing was, when doing the amendment to this, any changes, I don't like stall out, because I know there's other businesses that are that are going to get hung out to dry if if this amendment gets kicked down the road. If there's a way to just amend it specifically for the self-storage, or get rid of any of the things that were removed and put them back in, and still push this forward to help the other businesses that are trying to move forward, I think that's advantageous to the city of Kimberley. So I don't want to get it hung up, but let's stop this. Let's move it forward, but let's address the issues of it and keep it moving forward rather than stall it out. That's all I got, unless
All right.
anyone has questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Carl.
Alistair Lang, partners with Jill. We recently purchased just a little over 8 acres of M2 land from Carl. It's very kind of him to help us keep moving our Stoke. We paid a bit for it, yes, but without that, we wouldn't be able to continue growing our business. So we're very happy with the text amendments of specifically beverage production, and hope that that will progress. But I want to stand in support with Carl and the other caller that we think it's unfair to remove things, because if this was us in reverse, how would we feel about having something removed when we bought this land and knowing we want to do something? And I also like to echo Carl's sentiments that it's important that we move quickly for us, in that we have a development permit that's pending and we're being told that nothing will happen in M2 land until this is resolved. So we hope that there's a mechanism in place that we can have our text amendment added and those other items reinstated into this and have this move forward. That would be the wish of us as a pretty large now landowner of M2 property in Kimberley. Thank you.
Thanks, Alistair. I'll call for submissions a second time. Showing up online. Okay, I will call for submissions a third and final time. All right, hearing no further submissions, the public hearing for this bylaw is now closed. Thanks, folks. Appreciate the comments. Stay tuned as we deal with this a little bit later in the meeting. The second public hearing this evening is with regard to bylaw 2746, which impacts 72 Kimberley Avenue. So I think everybody heard the statement leading up to this. I don't think I have to go through that again, unless anybody wishes me to. We will skip straight to the overview. Troy, can you explain to us what bylaw 2746 is about?
Can do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bylaw 2746 will rezone 72 Kimberley Avenue from the downtown mixed use zone, the DMU1, to downtown mixed use zone DMU2. This proposed bylaw is intended to facilitate the development of a detached accessory dwelling at the rear of the property, accessed from the lane. No changes to the existing house at this time.
Short and sweet. Thank you very much, Troy. Have we received any correspondence on this one, Maurice?
There was no correspondence, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Given that, I will call for submissions the first time. So Megan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm actually just here. Hi, I'm just here to actually listen in if anyone had questions. I think you have most of the details and the intent of, just looking to build a carriage house in the back, but keep it the DMU that it is for the diversity of it. And yeah, I think most of the neighboring people know and don't have a concern. And just looking forward to moving it forward.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Megan. Call for submissions a second time. Hearing none, call submissions a third time. All right, with no further submissions, the public hearing for bylaw 2746 is now closed. Thanks, everybody, for cooperation and patience through those two hearings this evening. Okay, first up, order of business tonight is the zoning amendment bylaw 2747 for 419 Alpine Crescent. And the motion on the floor is that council instruct the corporate officer to issue notices of intent to not hold a public hearing for bylaw number 2747. 2747, amendment number 169, 2023. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Royer, thank you. Councillor Karen seconds. Discussion. Troy, do you want to kind of just give us the short version on no public hearing?
Yeah, this is another one that's pretty straightforward. Proposed rezoning for this property. It's a bit of an anomaly, not clear why or how this home got approved in the first place, being that the property was zoned R3, multifamily residential. But nonetheless, it's been there. I guess it's always been there since it was built. The property owners are looking to develop a detached garage on the property, and requires that they have the property rezoned to bring it in, so it's no longer a non-conforming use. And then they'll also benefit from the new development regulations in the R1 zone with reduced setbacks and some of the building height changes, that kind of thing. So that'll better fit their proposal and should minimize the chances or the need for variances. But it's quite an unusual shape lot. Some grade challenges as well, being at the toe of a slope. And so, I mean, time will tell as they develop those plans further, whether there's any variances, but this should minimize the extent anyway. So yeah, being that it's a residential to residential change, and the existing use and the proposed use of the property is very consistent with that, which really is kind of a mixed use neighborhood. It's a mix of R1 and R3 zones, and so should fit in just fine and makes even better use of the existing property.
Excellent. Thanks, Troy. Council, any questions? Go ahead, Councillor McBain.
So it just seems, it's just housekeeping essentially. That's the way I see this. Troy, would you agree with that assessment?
Yes, pretty good way to summarize.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't really have any comment.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Councillor Roberts, go ahead.
I appreciate that they are asking for the variance from what it was, because I can't see any other way that that piece of property could be anything else but an attachment that has been very creatively designed to be able to use that unusual shaped piece of land over the edge. So I think that this, thank them for coming forward.
All right, thank you, Councillor Roberts. So hearing no further comments, we'll call the question. All those in favor? The motion is carried. Next up, we have the zoning amendment bylaw 2746 for 72 Kimberley Avenue. And the motion on the floor is the council approve third reading of the bylaw. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Royer, thank you. And Councillor McBain seconds. Troy, anything further?
Nothing further, just to clarify that we do recommend third reading, and we do have to wait for adoption of the bylaw until we confirm that Ministry of Transportation has no further comments, but they've already indicated their support for the bylaw as proposed.
So we're just waiting for the formal letter to come back.
That's correct.
Okay, awesome. Council, questions, comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, next up, we have the zoning amendment bylaw 2738, which is the light industrial zone M2 amendments. The motion on the, we've got some options here that staff have included in the bylaw. I have a question, Troy, if I may. The comment that Alistair made about them not being able to move with their development permit until this is there. Could you just elaborate on that, please? Because we do have an existing M2 zone that development permit was filed under.
Yeah, we do have an existing M2 zoning. Part of the research and the rationale that we developed for the proposed amendments to the M2 zone was knowing that project was coming along, and knowing that the existing M2 zoning doesn't have a use category that suits that proposed use and that proposed facility. So that's why we've added in that use category, and we think it fits very well with OCP objectives and policies for industrial development. But like, as you pointed out, there is an active development permit application for that proposal, and we can't bring that application forward for council approval until the zoning is approved and in place. So there is some time sensitivity from that perspective. I think Mr. Lauren there was suggesting or hinting at the alternatives there, which is, as I recommended, or not recommended, but mentioned or pointed out to council earlier today, was the option of approving second and third reading of this bylaw this evening. Again, we have to wait for final approval from MOT before the bylaw can be adopted. But again, they've already indicated their support and approval, or no concerns with the amended bylaw. But then if council follows that path, you could also direct staff to prepare a separate zoning amendment to consider the concerns raised through the public hearing about the self-storage use or any other use categories. We can deal with that as a separate bylaw. And I think that would probably be the most time effective, time efficient approach to this, and help move along the development permit for the one proposed use there. And then if then we can deal with the self-storage issue under separate zoning.
Okay, so just for clarification again, the development permit has come in and we have an existing M2 zone. Why would, I'm not trying to be thick here, but why would we?
The existing M2 zone does not allow that use. So we can't approve a development permit for a use
Okay,
that doesn't
this is an
exist.
addition that has come into the
It's
amended zone.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it's one of the new uses proposed in the M2 zone.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, got it. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
I'm just curious about Carl's concern and whether this could impact, if we move forward with this bylaw, if it could impact the timeline that Carl might have for self-storage.
Wait, could definitely add some delay to his project. I'll let him speak to the proposed timing, but my understanding is it's perhaps not quite as urgent of a build as the other one. I think we can prepare an alternative or an additional zoning amendment bylaw to consider the self-storage use fairly quickly. It's not very complicated.
So could that be prepared before we even do the final approval? I'm guessing that the final approval will be in July for this.
Yeah, so yeah, the earliest that we could adopt in terms of the regular scheduled meetings is the July meeting.
Yeah.
And I don't see any cause for concern of not having MOT response by then. They've already indicated again that they've support that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the timeline. So we could have on that agenda as well a new amendment. Is that correct? First reading.
Yeah, I mean, we've got lots of things going on, as you all know, but I don't see why we couldn't probably have that prepared for the next meeting.
And that would be first meeting and first reading, and then we'd have to go through a public.
Well, council would have the option of proceeding without public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, Councillor McBain.
Yeah, just looking at the definition that you have that staff has put together for self-storage, well, I have two questions. So it seems to me like it's almost vague enough to take into account the potential use for like a caretaker's residence. Just wanted to get your take on that, Troy, just the way I'm reading it. I mean, my comment on that is that's not an unusual thing. I lived in the States for a long time. There's storage places everywhere, and almost always there's a caretaker residence on site. So that was one question. And the other one is, and this is kind of goes to one of the points that Carl made in his letter. And maybe this has been discussed and I missed it, but the rationale for removing some of the items from, and I appreciate the work that's been done to clean up and add things, kind of much what some of the other folks have said, but I'm just curious to know what the rationale is and why it can't be just as simple as an amendment to this bylaw to re-include some of the things that were moved.
Go ahead, Troy.
So the first part of that question, and perhaps I misunderstood, but I think there might have been a little bit of confusion there. I think you're mixing up two kind of comments that were made earlier in the public hearing. So one is, I mean, there's a few people that have raised the concern about self-storage not being a permitted use. But about the caretaker's residence, and I think that is one of the new uses that we've proposed, or that's proposed to be added to the M2 zone, is the accessory dwelling use as a permissible accessory use. So that would allow for an accessory dwelling, or some would call it caretaker's residence, accessory or secondary to some other permitted use, right? As drafted right now and as being considered by council right now, the self-storage use is not proposed in there. So if I maybe I misunderstood, but if you couldn't say, well, we're going to build an accessory dwelling and then we're going to have a storage use accessory to that wouldn't be allowed, because again, the principal use needs to be permitted first of all, and then you could potentially have an accessory dwelling as a caretaker's residence or something related to that. But you want to clarify?
No, that clarifies
Yeah.
the first part.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Sorry, I think I might be forgetting that part now, but yeah. So oh yeah, there's two parts to that as well. We did propose. So we like the existing use category in there that I think is kind of fair to assume includes a storage facility, but that title there is the warehousing. Sorry, so I don't want to say the wrong thing here. Storage and warehousing industry, including the storage of recreational vehicles. So that's an existing use category under the current M2 zone. What's proposed in the new bylaw is basically breaking that into two new use categories. So one is warehousing and one is self-storage. So it's again, it's kind of modernization, clarity of the language to just improve the like make it clear that there's a distinction between the two types of use. And warehousing is a proposed use in there. And self-storage is not, as well. I think we all are clear on that now. And I mean, there's a bunch of different reasons for that, but I mean, coming into this amendment, there's been a lot of discussion with current and previous councils about the lack of industrial lands, the lack of industrial development. So big rationale for this whole amendment was trying to make sure that we're setting up that zoning to accommodate a wide range of uses. I mean, it's our view in looking at that and the objectives there. For one of the key things being objectives for those industrial lands is to increase not just investment in those lands and improvements to those lands, but uses that generate employment activity and just even have activity on site. And self-storage use is one that's it's allowed in a lot of other jurisdictions, that's for sure. There is existing uses in our community. There's existing uses in other industrial areas around in our region and throughout. But it's our view that it's one of those ones that sure, there's clearly demand for that kind of a use, but it's pretty low kind of operational value or longer value that way from a jobs perspective or employment perspective. So that's probably the key thing. And I think, again, it's that part of that wider rationale for trying to attract investment and improvements to the industrial lands. As I pointed out, the self-storage use is not permissible right now. It could be added in there. If council's interested in considering that further, our recommendation is that be considered under a separate bylaw. Allow this bylaw to proceed as it is, and we can turn around a separate bylaw for that to be considered separately.
Councilor McBean.
Just to follow up then, wouldn't it have made a little more sense then, rather than going, I mean, I guess we're kind of doing that right now, but having more discussion prior to which items were going to be removed. I appreciate, you're taking input on things that have been put forward in the past, but were discussed in the past, but it just seems to like it would have made a little bit more sense. I mean, you know, we're talking about right now, okay, well, let's go ahead and move this through, and then we'll go back and rehash this and do another bylaw to, you know, to fix this problem that we're talking about right now, instead of, to me, not removing something in the first place. We redefine it, and those definitions that you provided, I'm fine with that. But it just seems like we're making more work for ourselves.
Councillor Roberts.
Well, let me get this straight in my own mind here, Troy. It seems to me that what you want us to do is, what a potential possibility is that we go ahead and do the third reading tonight, and that takes this group who own the 8 acres off the hook. They are now included. And then we deal with the idea of storage, self-storage, or what you're referring to as warehousing to be determined at a later date. So I find it interesting that when I look back at the existing bylaw 1850, that statement, the proposed definition of self-storage means the use of land, and it's not explicitly, here it was, storage and warehousing industry, including storage of recreational vehicles. All those things in a statement are in 1850. But they're not in the documents that you've presented with us as an alternative new process. So my question is, why do we have to, since we have not approved this document from the original, why do we have to start all over again? Why can we not just insert it in here?
I'm going to answer both of those points with a single remark, because I think they're basically the same comment or question. It's not really more work. Well, let me put this another way. It's about the same amount of work to add self-storage in either option. So if you want to amend this bylaw to add it, we have to go back and do another public hearing. That's the way the legislation's set up, is if we change the use is considered in that bylaw, or the density considered in that bylaw, and it's not a density question, it's a use question in this case, then we need to redo the public hearing. So my point is, the more time efficient alternative is to approve this bylaw as it is and direct staff to bring back a new bylaw that adds self-storage use to the amended M2 zone. And you can have the option to consider whether to have a public hearing or not in that case, because it's a separate bylaw consideration. But because we've considered it through a public hearing in this case, it's going to require a secondary public hearing.
Okay, that clarifies it for me. So if we approve it tonight with the direction to do something later, that puts these people, they're done. They're okay. Is that correct?
Well, as long as the bylaw gets adopted in the end, yes. Yep. And they still need to come back for.
Yeah, because like you say, we're talking about people's timelines here. If we can't get everybody, can we get some on their way?
That's what we're proposing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Roberts. So I guess I just have a couple of comments, Troy. What's most expedient, given the process we have, is what we should be doing. So I'm cool with giving the first 3 readings tonight, but then proposing a second resolution to direct staff to prepare an amendment as expeditiously as possible, preferably for the same meeting that we're bringing this thing back for adoption. And I guess my comment around the kind of the state of, or the purpose or the value of the self-storage units, there is a massive demand in the community. And as we see people downsizing, people take their valuable stuff, which is the most valuable stuff in the world at the time they're leaving their existing residence, and it goes into storage because there's no room, no other place to put it. There's just big demand for this, and it's a service in the community that we should be providing an opportunity for an entrepreneur to provide. We do have additional industrial lands. It's not like we are, cutting out industry at this point in favor of mini storage or storage facilities. So if that's the most expeditious way we can do that, to get that development permit for Stoke done, and also move forward with the Tyee development permit for those mini storage units, then I will certainly support that. So we need a motion on the floor. The motion on the floor would be, I guess, as per the report, correct? Oh, sorry, Kevin. Yeah, go ahead.
I just thought, would we not see some sort of drawings of these developments before development permit is granted?
We won't be approving development permits tonight. Those will come as a separate report at a future meeting. And you'll see it proposed, like
Okay.
plans and everything for it.
Yeah, we're just facilitating the movement forward for those to come to council. Okay, so the motion on the floor is that council approve second and third reading to bylaw 2738, amendment 164, 2023. Do I have a mover? That'll be a second motion. Yeah. Councillor McGuire moves and Councillor McBain seconds. Any further discussion, council? All those in favor? That motion is carried. And any opposed? Sorry, Councillor Royer is opposed. Sorry about that. Everybody, when the hands go up, please raise them high. It helps me kind of just scour the room. Now, the next motion on the floor would be to direct staff to prepare an amendment to what, Troy?
To prepare a separate amending bylaw to consider self-storage use.
Under the
And
M2.
to consider adding self-storage use to the M2 zone. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor McBain moves. Councillor McGuire seconds. Further discussion, council? All those in favor? All right, that motion is carried. Thank you. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of act on this in for the July meeting. Thanks, council, for the good discussion. Okay, moving on. Next up is the development variance permit for 849 Deer Run Drive. Seems that we've had 849 on the agenda here I think this is about the fourth time. Glad to see we're finally coming through with a motion to approve the development variance permit to reduce the minimum setback for the retaining wall at 849 Deer Run Drive. Councillor Roberts moves and Councillor McGuire seconds. All right, last conversation on this one, Troy. This is
Very
taking a
happy
while.
to not comment, but just for everyone's
It's taken a while.
clarification.
We're there.
Yes, thank you, council, for all the previous time and energy on this one. The applicant has, since the last discussion, has finally provided some additional plans and details about the proposed wall. And we're staff are feeling that that's sufficient detail, at least for this stage. I mean, we still have a number of questions and the kind of the range or the range of scenarios, I guess, that we envision seeing how this property can be developed. But I think we can tackle those in future proposals when those proposals are known by the current or future property owners. So we're recommending council proceed with the variance as initially requested to reduce that side setback on the south side of the property from 2 meters down to 0, which I think is is very consistent with what's been approved on the immediately adjacent property and also the one to the south of that. We anticipate that there, depending, as more detail comes available at building permit stage for either the wall or for a new dwelling or both, that there may be modifications required to that retaining wall design that either kind of change the plan in any possible way of, but most specifically, probably the height. We think that there might be a variance required or exception required for the height, the exposed wall height. But that can be that's a problem for another day, I guess, at this point. So.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Thanks, Troy. It's also good to see the proponent is collaborating with the neighbor, to ensure that things are consistent as they move forward. So I think we're over the hump on this one. Council, any further comments? Call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Awesome. Thanks, Troy. Okay, next up, we have the COVID-19 Restart Community Grant Program Fund allocation. And the motion on the floor is that council approve the allocation as outlined in the report from the Manager of Community Development and Communications. The combined total is $72,200. And could I have a mover, please? All right, Councillor Royer. Councillor Karen seconds. Pam, did you want to make a comment?
Thank you again for your votes this round for the Safe Restart grants. We will allocate the funding as the grants came in. And yeah, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I think we'll have some not-for-profits that are going to be pretty happy about the additional money coming this year. Yeah, awesome. Okay, call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Next up, we have the 2022 annual report. I kind of got a deja vu on this. I thought we dealt with this a couple of weeks ago, but it was the 2-week notice to actually deal with the annual report. So here we are, and the motion on the floor is the council approve the 2022 City of Kimberley annual report and financial statements as attached to the report from the corporate officer dated June 26th. Councillor Roberts moves. Councillor Royer seconds. Further comment? Anybody? All those in favor? That motion is carried. And second resolution is that council directs staff to submit the 2022 City of Kimberley annual report and financial statements to the Government Finance Officers Association for review under the Canadian Award for Financial Reporting Program. Mover, please. Councillor McBain moves. Councillor Roberts seconds. This is worth a comment from either Krista or Jim. Can you kind of explain what we're doing?
Yeah, so we've been for the last 5 years submitting the annual report to the Government Finance Association, the International Association. And each of those 5 years, we have been awarded with the Canadian Award for Financial Reporting, which really just goes to show that it kind of reflects the amount of work that's gone into the annual report. It shows that we're providing relevant information to the readers of the document, primarily the taxpayers of the City of Kimberley. So yeah, we're hopeful that they will accept this year's report as well and provide that for 6th year.
Councillor Roberts.
We're going to have to come up for an acronym for your success, the way they do with Oscar winners.
Anybody else? Yeah, awesome work, guys. The recognition is well deserved.
Thank you.
So let's hope one more time. So call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Next up, we have the check run in the order of $1,414,092. Oh, I beg your pardon, the Sophia report. Yep, thank you. Next up is the Sophia report for 2022. And the motion is that council approve the 2022 Statement of Financial Information in the form attached to the CFO's report. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Roy seconds. Any discussion on this? Council, questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor? That motion is carried. And finally, check run in the order of $1,414,092 to be approved as paid. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. Any discussion?
There's a couple of things that are outstanding. There's a fair amount of money, $283,000 being spent right now to line the pipes on Alpine Crescent. It's amazing how much it costs to do that, but it's also amazing how much it ensures the long-term use of those pipes for running water and so on. And additionally, it also is a time of year where we're paying $52,000 to the Cranbrook jail system for looking after our prisoners.
52,000. So when that agreement was put in place back in 2012, I think it was $48,000, I think.
Actually,
Heck of a deal.
it's still a deal compared to what some things
Yeah.
are.
Absolutely. Okay, council, any other comments? Call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, moving on to correspondence. The first item is the email from Adam Creamer, dated June the 12th, talking about the crosswalk at Rails to Trails. It's at the arena going across from Rails to Trails. So any comments? Go ahead, Councillor McBain.
This would just be more of a curiosity question. Well, I use this crosswalk actually quite a bit, and I really appreciate Mr. Creamer writing in and providing this some context of somebody who lives there and probably sees things a lot more than the recreational user like myself. I will say that most people are actually pretty good about seeing folks and stopping there, but I guess this question would be looking around. Scott, what kind of costs are associated with this type of structure? Ballpark.
Ballpark six-figure costs.
Yeah.
To do that.
I figured that.
As suggested by.
What's the first number in that six figure?
A one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it would creep into the six figures, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Scott.
So I think it might be appropriate for us to just refer this back to staff, kind of bring some detail on what, not just the cost, but, you know. Go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
Yeah, putting safety features in place, just chosen based on council or staff's whim, isn't recommended because quite often they can actually create more safety issues. My recommendation would be to have a traffic engineer assess the city, come up with places that could be improved, and then an action plan based on that, as opposed to just putting speed bumps, for example, wherever you want, kind of thing. It's just better that way. We had ICBC come through and do an assessment of the town, and quite often when I was working at the city, the comments were that, you know, some of these safety features that are being requested, when you actually run the numbers and look at the data, would create more of a safety concern than they actually. It's a perception thing. You put up these things thinking that they're gonna create more safety, but sometimes they actually create false sense of security for those people that are using the features, and can actually cause accidents.
Yeah, this is why MOTI are very reticent to take a look at additional crosswalks, even though it may be counterintuitive for some residents. In this particular case, we already have a crosswalk there, and I think the request is to beef it up. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Woody. I appreciate that. I remember you working on those traffic things. I think that could be part of what's referred to staff is staff could recommend the same thing Councillor McGuire has just recommended. If it's over our heads, we don't have traffic engineers on staff. I'm certainly not one, but I appreciate not having council choose traffic calming devices. Yeah. But yeah, I think we could consider that in the staff report and come back with some costs for that sort of thing as well.
Do we need a resolution for that, or just you'll take that away?
For our tracking system of resolutions, it's preferable to do a resolution.
Okay. Resolution to direct staff to prepare a staff report for a future meeting. Councillor Dunneback, thank you. And Councillor Royer, thank you. Discussion. Go ahead.
Just a capacity thing for Scott. I mean, we're just, this is just another staff report we're asking for. Is this something that is going to, derail other items?
That's a great question. It would be added to a long list of projects and potential projects. I think sometimes when people write in, they expect staff is going to drop everything and the report will be on the next agenda. Yeah.
There's no time.
However, if it's not time sensitive, we will get to it and prepare a fulsome report with all the safety concerns and possibly recommendation for engineering.
Yeah, so my comment there was just if there's no, if the urgency is low, which I think we all can agree, then I'm fine with that. That was just.
All right, thanks for those comments.
But I,
Go ahead.
Yeah, just so I'm clear, is this for this specific location or are we looking at across town? Because I believe there's a lot of different concerns that come across our email inboxes throughout the year.
We're just talking about this one, I think.
So this staff report would be
It's in
only for
response
this.
to the, yeah. It would be on this one in particular, yeah. As the motion is laid out. Troy, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to, just as a, I guess, a extra consideration or perhaps an alternative consideration, would remind council about the active transportation network plan, that did have a process of kind of reviewing all this. I know there was a number of things involving Rotary Drive. I don't remember off the top of my head and I couldn't find it quickly as I was just searching, but, I don't recall whether that one was particularly identified as a need for upgrades there, but I would recommend that maybe, you know, kind of deferring that discussion to the next review of the active transportation network plan, which I think is, you know, probably somewhere within a few years time frame or so. But it, you know, that would help build on and put it in the context of that review of all of those other crossings and other transportation considerations that went into that process.
Councilor Roberts?
I'm just going to throw in my 2 cents worth about being so close to that part, that particular crosswalk. I live at that end of town now, which is new to me. But my area of concern is not really that corner as much as it is the crossing over into the parkland with all the mums and the little kids and everything. It's just like little ants coming and going steady without anybody looking. So I just don't kind of discount that when you're looking at where the crosswalk should be.
Yeah, you're talking about the trailhead for rails to trail.
Yeah, the trailing. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
At the rails to trails and then towards the park, all along there. It's not just the trail link.
Yeah, I'm not sure the kind of the intent here is to defer this for a few years. Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah, sorry, and not to suggest that it would take that long, but I just think it's important to consider it within that context of the network plan,
fair enough.
and which obviously involves the rails trail and all those connections to and from there. So at least referencing that, I guess, in the deferral, however
Yeah,
that looks.
and
but-
that could be part of the staff report coming back.
Yeah.
You know, is one of the recommendations for sure. Further? Yeah, we'll kind of leave it to staff to provide the context for it. Yeah. Okay, cool. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor McGuire is opposed. The motion is carried. Okay, the next two items are informational items. Could I have a mover, please, to accept? Councillor Royer, thank you. Councillor Roberts, seconds. Any discussion? Councillor Cairns, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if we could spend a moment on that last email, the Forest Crown one.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to jump back,
ahead.
but and I did ask about this issue at the last meeting, and I can't quite. I don't think I really comprehended what the process is going forward. So I know it was talked about that it was with the Ministry of Transportation in terms of the pedestrian and cycling trail access into Forest Crown, and I just wondered if I could get like a little more information. Where's that at, and yeah, what are the timelines?
Go ahead, Scott.
So the mayor and I met with MOTI this morning. I think the pledge before was that we would meet with them. The meeting got canceled. We met with them this morning and we're informed, no, there is no crosswalk warranted. It would not happen there across the highway anyways.
Okay, and in terms of the idea that Thijs van Gaza put up around a trail actually heading down across the St. Mary's Road and into Marysville, what would be, is there any ability to take a look at that, or a nonprofit group to kind of take that on to explore what the possibilities might be there?
We'd love it if a nonprofit group took that on.
Okay.
It looked like a couple $1 million, 7 figures
Okay.
for Councillor McBain. It crosses private property.
Okay.
What was proposed was very complicated.
Okay.
Further to what Mr. Pollock was discussing, we have an active transportation network plan, and I do not believe in my time here in Kimberley that we will get around to completing that plan, much less adding new things to the plan. So I would maybe recommend if the residents of Forest Crown are looking for some connectivity to the city through private property and all of that, that a local area tax might be the way to go about it. Certainly when they bought their properties in Forest Crown, that transportation network did not exist, and it will be very costly for it to exist. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, Councillor Cairns, and thanks for that, Scott. Anything further? Call the question. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Woody.
Yeah, just back to my comment at the last one. I just feel like when these safety concerns come up, that in my opinion, it would be better to address them through things like our active transportation plan and through citywide safety assessment as opposed to one-offs. And that's why I didn't support the previous motion.
Fair
and why I also wouldn't, I mean, in this case, it's outside of our jurisdiction anyways, but why I also wouldn't support a specific study for this. Feel like this should be looked at a community-wide level.
And I was going on the same lines as Woody, but what you said at the end there, Mr. Mayor, was, you know, if staff's recommendation is to go that route, then we would hear it in the staff report. I was with you, Woody. It felt like a very specific staff report. So if we can have language in there that includes you know, consideration to take it into a broader thing, that I'm with you 100%.
And to follow up your comment from earlier, we do get a lot of one-offs on traffic concerns. The vast majority are around crosswalks, but there are others. And you're right, dealing with those on a one-off is just difficult to do. But I think rather than it come to council for us to, you know, kind of talk about one-offs, referring it back to staff for fitting into things like the active transportation plan, you know, just makes sense. Okay, awesome. Call the question on receipt. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, next up we have question period. As we typically go through this, and we don't have our online pitter patter here this evening on the report here, Maurice. So I will refer back. It's the same number and meeting number as the public hearing, is it not? Yeah. Yeah. So I'll just refer back to the public hearing for the number. Thank you. So we'll do councillor matters while we're waiting to see if anybody dials in from our online audience this evening. And if anybody online wishes to make comments on anything contained in the meeting this evening, you can call 1-800-741-7180. And the meeting number or access code is 2772-853-1840. That's 2772-853-1840. And while we're waiting to see if anybody dials in, we'll do the roundtable on councillor items. Councillor Roberts, start us off this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since we last met, I've had an opportunity to attend a Center 64 meeting with their board. They've been reassessing, looking at their financials for the year end. They've had their recently held their AGM, and also are preparing for a very busy very busy for Saturday's events throughout the summer. They've got a lot of new thoughts and new ideas coming forward. They're working still on getting to the next stage of their outdoor stage. That whole outdoor stage thing won't be quite ready for this year, I don't think, but it's certainly their ambition is to have it up and ready pretty darn as soon as possible. So that's where they stand.
Thank you. So last week, I attended meetings with the Watershed Committee and Bob Gray on water security in light of wildfire risks, changing climate, and requirements under the Drinking Water Protection Act. And the second meeting was with the Social Planning Society in Cranbrook on initiatives to support mental health and addictions and homelessness, as well as the broader work on strengthening food systems. And Kimberley benefits from these initiatives, so I found it helpful to get informed and make some connections there. And third, I attended meetings with the Economic Trust of the Southern Interior as an elected leader, board member, so that's at CBC, that's the acronym. And what I learned about is the pathways, solid pathways to economic development in our small communities. In short, leveraging our strengths to attract investment with a cooperative approach amongst businesses and small communities for shared information. So growing, it's very clear, growing and attracting small business, the key to prosperity here, and developing local talent and keeping the money local. So we need businesses that understand stakeholder engagement and sustainability. ESG, because these help us address our priorities such as workforce housing, workforce shortages, local business, supporting local business, local climate action, and attracting investment. So the examples that were provided were largely central Kootenay with multiple partners, including local government, business, and nonprofits. Many initiatives underway, and we could look to that approach here. To help address our priorities as well. We've got lots of local talent and a great community and organizations for these kinds of ventures, and room for them to start and grow. So it was a really active and interesting week. And just a really excellent presentation that was provided on kind of the food security piece at the Social Planning Committee. I've got extra copies of them if anyone's interested. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't get up to quite as much. I did attend the downtown, what was it called? Downtown revitalization planning session, and was impressed by the turnout. It's a good turnout, lots of good discussion happening. I found myself discussing potential developments in Marysville more than downtown, but hey, what can you do, eh? Anyways, we'll deal with that later this week, I suppose.
Thanks.
I have a health center meeting coming up on Thursday. Really nothing to report other than that. There was a library meeting last week, but I have to connect with Greg to get an update there. I was driving back. Yeah, I'm just happy to be in council in chambers for the first time in a month and a half, and I'm not in a hotel room or in my truck. So, yeah, and maybe I won't ask Troy stupid questions, that things that I can't remember. So I apologize to Troy for that. But yeah, no, that other than the health center meeting, and I think we have a public hearing tomorrow night that might be of note for people that are out there listening. But other than that, nothing.
Thank you, Councillor McBain.
Yeah, like it needed promoting.
Kevin.
Yeah, I guess all you guys know that I've been working hard in the background to put on a car show. It went off last week. On Saturday, we had 350 riders on the train. Every car was full except for the last train. There were kids everywhere. We had bouncy castle, pedal car races. Had a friend build a pinata that looked a lot like Herbie the Love Bug and brought his crane in and picked it up over the crowd and let the kids go to town on it. We teamed up with Overtime to have a beer gardens there as well. The support that we got from Cranbrook, Golden, Fernie, Elkford was mind-blowing. One thing that just about everybody said to me was that a stunning venue, and that they'll be back and that there will be more. I also had the president of the Radium Car Show reach out to me afterward, who was unable to attend, but through the grapevine heard how it was, and wants to work with me and my crew, which I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Radium Car Show, but it's 1,000 car plus, super high end, brings a ton of people to town who stay, eat, drink, golf, shop. So I learned a lot. I couldn't have done it without my crew, and Mick giving me the permission to go ahead and to try this out. So huge success, nothing but positive input from everybody. So really proud of it. And that's all I got to report.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Stephen.
I am happy to report that I did not attend any committees for the last 2 weeks. I felt really good. I feel totally refreshed. But I did attend the Around the Mountain event yesterday. It was highly well attended and very well organized by the committee. I want to congratulate them on a job well done. We ran into a bear problem and they dealt with it beautifully. So I just want to thank them from the bottom of my heart. Nobody got hurt in any way or form. Everything went without a hitch.
It was great. Do you want to mention what happened to Liz? Because that was part of the round. Somebody got hurt.
Okay, so Liz got hurt the day before.
And it was in prep for.
Yeah, in prep for the race. Yeah, the day before, 24 hours before the race, she broke her arm. Yeah. So that was a
Tripped
tough.
in training.
It's just in training, but
Yeah.
that's how it goes. Yeah.
Go ahead, Sandra.
Don't tell her that. Yeah.
Remember, this is going to be stored forever on YouTube for people to go back and view at their pleasure.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that Woody reminded me that I went to the open house for the downtown revitalization ideas, and by golly, there was some pretty cool stuff out there for people to have a look at and commiserate over. Some of them are really excited, some of them are, they don't dare do that, and it's fascinating to hear people's comments as they try to wrap their mind around those kinds of changes. You know, some of them are so excited, and some of them are worried sick. You know, it's really cool.
Cool.
They did a wonderful job.
Were you finished, Stephen? Yes. Yep. Okay. Awesome. Just before we get to the gallery comments, I've got kind of a brief summary. I had, pardon me, several health center meetings over the past couple of weeks, I guess. There is, we need to get the building fixed. It's a $5 to $7 million problem. We've been avoiding looking at that for a very long time. And there are some stakeholders lining up to not only get that money in place, but also to broaden the vision that we have for the health center here in Kimberley. And I'm referring to more of a regional health concept where we can take some of the pressure off the Cranbrook Hospital. So there's some really, really exciting things happening with that. Hopefully you'll hear a little bit about that at the meeting. Most of it's peripheral to the actual society, like the board itself, but nonetheless, there's a lot of really, really good activity going on there right now. I had an opportunity to spend a couple of hours with the Minister of Energy and kind of that long name that comes along with that department, and also the Minister of the Environment in Fernie about 10 days ago. They were in doing a tour of the Elk Valley and got the mayors from the region together for a casual dinner and just a chat about all things community. That was pretty awesome. More of an investment in relationship than a specific outcome on specific things, but those are important too. Tourism Kimberley board meeting and some board activity going on and moving our strategy for TK forward. I attended the Cranbrook Parade. It's kind of like the annual obligation to represent Kimberley in the parade in Cranbrook. It is parades. You know, when people say parades are dead, they are not dead in any way, shape, or form. The turnout this year was huge, and the number of floats that they had was huge as well. It was back to pre-COVID levels, so it was a lot of fun and great to see. A lot of people from Kimberley attend that parade as well. Interestingly, I attended the Selkirk Grad. Had an opportunity to say a few words and present a few awards. I also attended a landlords meeting in Cranbrook. This would have been earlier this week, I guess, or it's Monday. There is no earlier this week. The middle of last week. The Residential Tenancy Act is problematic for most landlords. And we have this rental issue, and the RTA and some of the policies surrounding it are causing landlords to get out of the business, either in selling their properties or in moving the properties to short-term rentals. And so I attended this meeting to try and understand what the main policy issues were. Quite honestly, they're not death-defying. Some minor tweaks to how the province deals with some of these things could in fact solidify an awful lot of rental housing. And it was really, really interesting to listen to the landlords themselves talk about, not so much, they weren't complaining about it, but the purpose of the meeting was to understand how to work with it. So to maximum benefit. The costs associated with it for them are extremely high when you consider they get 2% increases maximum annually. And inflation has been running at about 4 or 5 times that for most of the stuff they're dealing with. So the whole goal I have is to do some advocacy with the ministry to not so much advocacy on behalf of the landlords, but advocacy to look at policies surrounding the RTA that need to benefit both the tenants as well as the landlords. There needs to be a balance in there, and right now there is no balance. So that was really interesting. There were about 15 landlords attended that meeting. I too attended the Round the Mountain yesterday. Was kind of doing the iPad thing at the end, checking in the trekkers as they came through. It was an awesome event, as it always is every year. But I will also say on Saturday, I spent 2.5 hours at the station, kind of walking through the car show and just talking cars. I mean, there was every possible type of old car and modified car there. And there's just something really cool about talking to the owners of these cars and finding out the history and just talking tech. It was awesome. And the vibe around that whole thing, Kevin, was spectacular. Congratulations on an absolutely wonderful event. Okay, enough for me. Do we have anybody online?
We have nobody online.
All right. From the gallery, do we have anybody who wishes to ask any questions about tonight? Go ahead, Carl. Pardon? Yeah, we're still live streaming.
That email from Doug Kammerer about the Forest Crown thing, it comes up a lot. And so we've been talking internally with Anthem about what happens when MOT comes up and says, we need to do something here. What was the talk that you guys had? Because there's a real problem with people crossing that road. Like I get why MOT is like, no, not our problem, but there's a problem. Someone's going to get hit.
Yeah, they're basically saying the engineers, not so much obviously the managers we talked to, but the engineers are coming back with the data kind of within their parameters and saying that there will be no action from them on creating a crosswalk across the highway.
Are you allowed to put a crosswalk in? Are you allowed to propose a crosswalk to MOTI?
I don't believe so, no.
Not paid for by them?
I doubt it. I don't know the answer directly to that. I don't want to speak for them, but you know, their primary concern, ironically, is the same. It's public safety, and their data tells them that putting a crosswalk in there of some kind is going to be detrimental to public safety, not help advance it.
They don't see the trail on the other side though, right? Like when they look at
Oh,
the
yeah.
view- they
Yeah,
do,
yeah,
they
no,
understand that?
We've talked to them 2 or 3 times about the trail through Forest Crown and kind of that access. I think what their preference is that they look at, and kind of how we finished the conversation today was that now that that egress is out the other side, that it would be better to connect up through the egress down to where the international school is going to be connected, because they have plans to in fact have a pathway down into Marysville. And so doing that short connection from Forest Crown to the school would be much more advantageous.
So don't even spend any more time on it? Like from my perspective.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think that would be productive.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, just trying to be honest about that. Yeah. You know, the quick no versus the long maybe. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Okay, we do have one item for in camera this evening, so we need to have a motion to go in camera. Councillor Royer moves, Councillor Dunneback seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. We'll take 2 minutes to disconnect. Careful what you say till we disconnect.